Well, g'day, flatties and globe defenders. This is Critical Think from Down Under. Thank you very much. Well, today we're going to talk about how Taboo Conspiracy and P-BRANE debunk the flat Earth. My source material is from this video from Taboo Conspiracy, which he claims that no Earth curve shadow proves the Earth is flat. But as we'll see, he actually proves that the Earth is not flat and the Earth is a globe because the Earth curve shadow exists. Now you'll notice here that he uses this background picture of the sky from a balloon flight for many of his videos. But the whole basis of using this picture is based on a fraud and a lie. But we'll get to that one day. So here's my new title for Taboo Conspiracy's video. In my biased and pathetic attempts to prove the flat Earth, I accidentally proved the globe. So let's start to listen to what he's got to say.
For the last few years, globe propagandists have been sharing pictures like these, showing what appears as though Mount Rainier is casting a shadow upwards onto the clouds above the mountain, supposedly proving the Earth is a globe, since the sun seems to be at a lower physical angle than the mountain.
Yes, of course, you'd have to be blind Freddy to think that that is not the sun shining upwards on the cloud. I mean, the shadow is obvious. Even the lighting on the clouds is obvious. We'll get more into that. Really, this is just so obvious that the sun is illuminating the bottom of the clouds. But many flat earthers, I mean all of the flat earthers, just can't see this. They don't want to see this. But anyway, let's go.
The globe claim seems plausible, but the claim is entirely false, and instead proves the Earth is flat.
Well, no. Anyone with half a brain at least can see that this is a shadow cast upwards. Look at the colour of the sky. I mean, the sun, sunset sun, sunrise sun is always the orange colour. And by the shadows on the clouds, it's so obvious. But anyway.
Now, the YouTube channel P-BRANE absolutely destroyed this juvenile globe argument with actual time-lapse videos filmed from the tops of mountains.
Well, here the argument is made. They've taken some time-lapse video from the top of mountains, and this is an explanation for the sun shining on the bottom of the clouds. Right. Got it.
In short, based on actual time-lapse footage filmed from the tops of mountains, mountains always cast a shadow downwards onto the clouds.
Well, that conclusion doesn't follow from taking some time-lapse movies from the top of the mountain.
But what I think is important is the fact that because there is never an upward shadow filmed from an observation point on top of a mountain, the globe has to be false. These time-lapse videos prove the Earth is flat.
Well, no, they don't, because all they prove is that you've taken a time-lapse video of a shadow on clouds that are below the top of the mountain. There's no proving that the clouds can never be higher and the clouds cannot have the sun shining on them. This is no proof of something that you do not see. And this is, again, a variation of what I call the red dress fallacy. Now, I saw a group of women wearing red dresses. Therefore, all women wear red dresses. So he's saying, oh, there's plenty of time-lapse photos of the sun casting a shadow on the clouds below the top of the mountain. Therefore, the sun can never shine on the clouds above the top of the mountain. One of the funny things to note about this diagram, down the bottom he's depicted how this might look with the sun, the angle of the sun. And here's his sun height. This line represents that. But in order to get such an angle like this, where this is almost parallel to the skyline, if for this to happen, the sun would be too far away on a flat Earth. But no flat earther can do the maths, so therefore they don't know this. They think that they can just draw this line on a diagram and see, that's how it works. But that's impossible on a flat Earth. And you see that the actual shadow in the background here, the shadow caused by this low angle of the sun is actually going there above the horizon. But more on that in a little while. Now, they claim that the clouds in this picture are in fact below the top of the mountain, and that shadow is actually on the top of the clouds, which is pretty ridiculous when you consider that there's a gap there between the top of the mountain and its shadow, which clearly indicates that the clouds are above. And how can you get a shadow punching through clouds like that? Oh, I don't know. See here, look at the clouds. Look at the color of those clouds when the sun is shining on the top of it. And then look at the color of the clouds when the sun is shining on the bottom. They're two different colors.
Because all the shadows are down on top of the clouds, which means the sun has to be higher than the peak of the mountain in order to cast a shadow on the top of the clouds.
Well, nobody argues that if a shadow is cast on the top of the clouds, that the sun must be higher. Nobody's arguing against that. But the argument is taking a picture of a shadow on clouds that are below the top of the mountain does not cover the case where the clouds are above the mountain. And in fact, in this picture, this is impossible again on a flat earth. You see the horizons here and the shadows going above the horizon. How does that happen? Here's a photo I took myself. This is a sunrise. The sun is clearly shining on the bottom of that cloud bank there. Now, flatties will say that that's reflected off something. But look at the shadows. Look at the shadows. If the sun was above the clouds, these dark clouds here would not be dark, right? They're in the shadow of the sun that way, and the light and the shadows there clearly indicate the sun is below the clouds and below my eye level in this photo. How's that possible on a flat earth? It's not. Here's another example of sun going down below the clouds. And this is on a flight I took from Brisbane to Canberra. And there's the sun just about to set. Now you see here, all the cloud sheet below the aeroplane is in shadow. And the sun is shining on the clouds that are poking up there out of that cloud bank. You don't see any shadows or sunlight on the clouds before that. It's just the angle of the sun there is clearly getting down there almost parallel to that sheet of clouds. And as the sun goes down a little bit more, it's now shining on the top of those pieces of clouds that are sticking out from that cloud base. And as we go a little bit further, the sun goes down a little bit. Look at that. The sun is just tippy on the top of that dome of cloud there. And there's a little bit of a hole in the cloud, and you can see through the cloud there, it's red. So under the clouds is red, on top of the clouds is not red, and there are no shadows. Do you see this? This could be like a mountain sticking out the top of the clouds. It's a bunch of clouds sticking out the top. There's no shadow. There's no shadow, so the sun cannot be above that cloud bank, but it is below. And there the sun has gone down a little bit further. We can only see the red glow underneath. Now here's another thing about this. Up in the sky here, you'll see another aeroplane. And its contrail is glowing in the sun. But the sun is nowhere to be seen where we are. There's no sun shining on the clouds. No visible sunlight. But the sun is up there, shining on that aeroplane. Only possible on a globe, my friends. And here's the flight that I was on. And this is the flight that we saw in that picture. So this flight was much higher, of course. So it was the sun being down below our eye level. It was still shining on that flight, which was altitude of 38,000 feet, and we were only about 25,000 feet. Only possible on a globe.
What the time lapse that we see at sunset is a shadow that stretches out, and fades. If it were the sun going below the curvature, and if that were creating the shadow, and it were actually casting a shadow up onto clouds above, it would look like this. It would go down, and now the shadow would start far from the mountain on the clouds above, on the underside of clouds above the mountain, and would draw back toward the mountain. That's what it would look like. Yet we don't see that. That's
Well,
not
actually,
reality.
we do see that. Well, there's a couple of things in this little clip from P-BRANE. He says that the shadow retreats and then disappears. Well, there's obvious reason why the shadow disappears. See, the shadow of the mountain disappears because the Earth curve shadow is overtaken it. So all these clouds are now in shadow. The shadow goes up to this way, and you see the top of the mountain there, the peak, just disappears into the shadow. And if you look at that, look at the shadow creeping up. Yes, the Earth curve shadow. But anyway, P-BRANE will say, oh, that's only because the light gets tired and it cannot go that far. So, yeah, there's this limit to how far the light can travel. Yeah, well, this is debunked right in this video right here. We'll come to that in a minute. And the other part is P-BRANE saying the shadow would start away from the horizon and then make its way this way.
We don't see that. That's not reality.
Well, we do see that, and that is reality, as you'll see soon.
If the globe propagandists were correct, and Mount Rainier did cast this supposed upward shadow as the globe would require, then the physical Earth bulge itself would cast the same type of shadow.
Well, it would cast a shadow, and it does, but it doesn't look exactly like that.
There should be a massive Earth bulge casting an upward shadow onto the clouds.
And there is.
In fact, if the globe were real, we'd see this upward curved shadow cast on the clouds on a frequent basis, looking something like this.
Well, not so frequent. It's not very frequent, but not too difficult to capture at certain times of the year.
Have you ever seen an Earth bulge shadow on the bottoms of the clouds above you,
Yep.
moving rapidly across the sky? I certainly haven't.
So just because you haven't doesn't mean nobody else has. And so I'm going to present the video evidence. It's only moving rapidly across the sky because it's a time-lapse video. It's not so rapid when you actually observe it in real time.
There is no Earth curve shadow, and that's a big problem for the globe.
So conversely, if there is an Earth curve shadow, that's a big problem for the flat Earth, because that would mean the globe is real. The globe matches reality. How about that? Now, as I've said, this is how Taboo Conspiracy imagined it should look, but no, it won't look like that, all right? So no, the shadow won't be in a curve, all right? You see, the Earth is massive. You don't notice that much lateral curve. In fact, at ground level, you don't notice it at all. So the shadow in the sky is not going to be a curve. It's going to be pretty much a straight line. As you would see down to the horizon, that's your field of view. That's the amount of curvature you will see side to side, which has always been a big problem for the flatties to understand this. And then the shadow here will be the same shape with no noticeable curve. And also the shadow will never be sharp like this. Yeah, because the edge is a long way away. There won't be a sharp shadow. So we've already seen the evidence of Earth curve shadow. You can see what's called the belt of Venus. If you look east when the sun is setting, you'll see the shadow. But as I said before, P-BRANE thinks that's because the light can only go so far and it gets tired and just wears out. Here's one of my own photos of Earth curve shadow taken from the top of a mountain. Now I'm on the top of a mountain here. The picture's taken from the top of the mountain, and there's the shadow of the mountain range on the clouds. And now it's not going to be super sharp, of course, because the mountain and the clouds is a big distance between them, and that will blur the shadow. But I'm going to say that satisfies the criteria of the shadow of a mountain being cast on the clouds from the top of the mountain. Now, for those proponents of the theory that the light gets tired, I've got another video here. Now, here's a cloud bank that's stretching right up into the sky. So it's closer to us than the far distant horizon. But the shadow is still seen on the clouds. So the tired light argument doesn't hold, because this is much closer than the maximum distance that they say that light can travel. So therefore, this cloud bank should always be illuminated. But let's see what happens. Yes, sir, look at that. The Earth curved shadow climbing up that cloud bank. Let's look at that again. That's beautiful, isn't it? Now, that was a sunset. Here's another sunset. And the Earth curved shadow trailing back towards the west, as exactly as per P-BRANE's diagram, when he said, if the Earth were curved and the sun was going down below the horizon, this is what it would look like. Well, here it is. You see that shadow going back there? Let's look at that again. There you go. So we pull that back a bit. You can see the shadow, Earth curve shadow. Now there's a mountain range, the Great Dividing Range to the west. And that's the shadow from that Great Dividing Range. And it's retreating towards the west, exactly as the flat earthers, P-BRANE and Taboo Conspiracy, have said that it should look like if the Earth were a globe. And here's another time lapse I've taken at sunrise. And this one is a similar story, except the shadow goes the other way. His shadow comes towards us. And even the shadow patterns on the clouds, you can tell that the clouds are illuminated underneath. Now, some flatties have said that this is just a reflection of light up to the clouds. Well, that's all well and good, except the shadow moves in the wrong direction for a reflection. If this was just reflection from the light of the sun, as the sun comes closer, the shadow would in fact go towards the sun. But because the shadow is going away, it's not a reflection. So there, look at that again. It's pretty good, isn't it? So here's another video I found on one of those sites that sells videos, and I bought this one so I could publish it again. This is from the top of a mountain, the sunrise. Now there's clouds below the mountain and clouds above the mountain. So you can see the shadows being cast on the clouds above the mountain, and there's no shadow, as you can see, the cloud bank below the mountain. But let's have a look at this. You can just see some of the shadows starting to appear on the cloud bank below as the sun comes up. See the shadows there in the cloud bank below. But as you can see, the cloud up above has the sun shining on it, when the clouds below are in the shadows. So this one is also taken from the top of a mountain and showing the sun shining underneath the clouds there and not shining on the clouds that are below the top of the mountain. So there you go. Taboo Conspiracy and P-BRANE. All your criteria are met. You've managed to prove the Earth's a globe. Well done. Congratulations. So, Taboo Conspiracy said, if there was no Earth curve shadow, that means there's no globe. Well, there is Earth curve shadow. That means the globe. There is a globe because Earth curve shadow's there. So, Taboo Conspiracy, what do you think about that?
There is Earth curve shadow, and that's a big problem for the flat, non-rotating Earth.
Indeed. What about you, P-BRANE?
A delicious irony indeed, as we turn a flat Earth proof into a spinning ball proof.
Thanks, guys. That's great. Thank you. Well, that's all for today, and please respond in the usual manner. Like, share, and subscribe if you're not already done so. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.